Hello and welcome to Feedstuffs 365 and National Hog Farmer. I'm Ann Hess. Participants in the pork industry's Immersion Program complete a 2-year experience accelerating their development and creating a pipeline of leaders ready to meet the demands and challenges at pork associations. This immersion experience offers hands-on opportunities, facilitates network development, and provides exposure to all facets of the pork industry. Joining us to discuss this program is Mykenzie Darg, a current Immersion Program participant, and Seth Mitchell, Executive Director of the Nebraska Pork Producers Association. Welcome to you both, and thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Ann.
Before we jump into today's discussion, I'd like to remind the audience tuning in, you can post your questions at any time in the chat, or if you're tuning in via social media, you can post those there in the comments. So, Seth, let's start by having you just give us a brief overview of the program and its purpose.
Yeah, happy to. I was blessed a couple of years ago to have been selected as the first participant in the Pork Industry Immersion Program, and really at its core, what it is a talent development pipeline for the pork industry, and it's that is accomplished through a 2-year rotational leadership development by which participants complete 8 months with the National Pork Board. There in Des Moines, Iowa, 8 months with the National Pork Producers Council. Part of that time being spent in the Des Moines headquarters office, and part of that time being spent out in Washington, D.C. in the Federal Affairs Office, and then rounding out the program with another 8-month rotation with the State Pork Association to really get into the dirt with a state, the grassroots level perspective.
Quite a well-rounded program there with all those different groups represented. Mykenzie, you're a current participant in the program. Walk us through your experience with the National Pork Board thus far.
Yeah, so right now I'm wrapping up my first 8-month rotation with the National Pork Board. I will be done the first week in February. And so I first stepped in right around World Pork Expo, really hit the ground running. I have been able to be embedded in different parts of the organization, specifically under the communications team here at the National Pork Board. That is where I found interest, and then about halfway through kind of shifted some project and some goals, and I've been working on some work under the producer and state engagement team. And when I get to the National Pork Producers Council, we'll kind of shift my projects and what my role looks like based on interests, experiences, and the things I want to learn. And then next fall, I will head down to Oklahoma City and be part of the Oklahoma Pork Council team. And again, they're very great program that you're able to tailor your experiences to your interests and the things that you want to learn.
It's great to hear that you can pivot with those interests and jump into things that really motivate you within the pork industry. Seth, how about you? Tell us about your experience in the program and how it connects with your career today.
Well, it was an incredible experience for me to start out my early career journey with, and is really foundational to why I am where I am today. I can say with a high degree of confidence, had it not been for the Pork Industry Immersion Program, I likely wouldn't be sitting in this seat here, fortunate enough to be representing the producers across the great state of Nebraska. With my experience, it was a bit unique in the sense that I was the first person to go through it. So we were kind of building the program as we went along, and I'd say even still to this day, a lot of the program is what you make of it. And I think that's a real value add, in my opinion, to the participants, and that you can really shape and adapt to the program to fit the needs and interests of the participant based on where they see themselves fitting in to the big pork industry after you graduate, if you will, from the program. So kind of like Mykenzie, I started at the National Pork Board and spent 8 months there. My project mostly revolved around the swine health space, and so it culminated in a foreign animal disease tabletop exercise that we hosted, the first of its kind for specifically show pig exhibitors and influencers across the country. And so we were able to gather those folks there in Des Moines and reinforce the importance of a strong biosecurity and the impacts of a potential foreign animal disease outbreak to that segment specifically. Then once I transitioned to the National Pork Producers Council, kind of shifted the scope of my project work. I stayed in the lane of youth engagement as that relates back to the show pig segment, but really transitioned into the opportunity to develop what is today the Young Pork Advocates Program, an investment program for college students there at NPPC. And as part of that, also led the development of the Young Pork Advocates Issues Meet that has taken place at the World Pork Expo for the last couple of years. So that was a really exciting opportunity to see kind of the fruits of my labor pay off and have an impact on youth across the country. But then once I transitioned to my state pork association experience down in North Carolina, that's really where I was able to dig in and gain a lot of skills that I would say have had the most influence on my current role. I'm learning how to manage and operate a state pork association. I'm getting a lot of experience working with the North Carolina Pork Council as well as the Virginia Pork Council through a strategic partnership out there on the East Coast. So a lot of experience with kind of the back of house, behind the scenes operational pieces, as well as grassroots engagement, boots on the ground with producers. So those experiences all together were very formative for me and kind of helped me find some clarity around my path in the industry as I pursued what is now this opportunity serving as executive director of Nebraska Pork.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a well-rounded experience. Would you say going into the immersion program that you kind of knew that you would like a role like you have with Nebraska Pork right now, or did the immersion program maybe challenge some of your thinking there?
Quite admittedly, Ann, if you'd have told me that I'd be serving as a State Pork Association executive when I walked into the National Pork Board in January 2023, I'd have thought you were crazy. But I think there was a lot of development that took place over the 2 years that I was involved in the program. And kind of as I stated, I received a deeper sense of purpose as I was able to go through the three segments of the program and interact with producers and understand what the needs of the industry are. I really do felt like at the time that I applied for this position that the best way that I could serve the pork industry and give back was through service as a State Pork Association executive director. And that's only possible because of the confidence that was instilled in me through the program to be able to feel like I could execute the responsibilities of the role. However, I preface all that with the fact that I do still continue to learn each and every day. And, this is a really great industry. I'm fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of great mentors that continue to coach and guide me along this path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine it's got to be a little bit different with Nebraska versus with North Carolina, Virginia, you've been working with before. Mykenzie, you're moving on from the pork board. You're going to NPPC, Oklahoma Pork Council. What do you hope to experience in the next 16 months?
Yeah, that's the beauty of this program is really the things that I hope I can experience. I can find a way working with the great people that we get to work with through the immersion program and how I can experience those. So like my big thing is building relationships. I've gotten the opportunity just in the last 8 months here at the National Pork Board to build strong relationships with producers, state execs, staff, board members, anyone really involved in the industry. And that's my main priority. And that's kind of the back burner of the things that I do and what really fuels my fire. And so as I look into the next 16 months, knowing the things that Seth has done in Harrison, just being able to get a well-rounded understanding of the industry. And I know I'm getting there, and I've gotten the opportunities to do that already. And I just want to continue to build that knowledge and those experiences while continuing to build relationships and build that network that I know will be useful for my professional career for a very long time.
Yeah, you're a third of a way through the program, and it sounds like you're making some great connections there within the industry. Seth, how's the immersion program maybe helped you prepare for your current role? I imagine day to day you're not only representing the producers in your state, but also educating consumers, speaking to policy leaders on a regular basis. How has this program helped you with that?
In my current role, I like to describe myself as a generalist. As you kind of mentioned, there's many areas in which we operate as a State Pork Association. We're responsible for administration of checkoff dollars as well as non-checkoff dollars on the voluntary side to manage some of the policy and regulatory issues across the state. And so it requires kind of a surface level understanding of several of these issues across the industry. And I think that's what the Immersion Program does really well, is you may not leave the Immersion Program as an expert in everything or every single issue in the industry. But I can about guarantee you that you'll leave with, a surface level understanding of several of the projects and programs, and even more than that, the people and a subject matter expert who can dive a lot deeper than you can. And as Mykenzie was mentioning, that relationship piece, if you take nothing else away from the Immersion Program, that's really the critical component. I still, in my role, am certainly not an expert in everything, but because of the Immersion Program and because of the networks I've been able to build with the 80 staff people at the National Pork Board and the 40-some staff people at NPPC and state execs across the country, I know who to call. I have the phone numbers in my phone, and I have the relationship established there that I can pick up the phone and have that conversation and get the information that I need to be able to carry out my responsibilities on behalf of Nebraska producers. And so I think that's really it's really a critical component to the Immersion Program.
Yeah, you're almost able to wear many hats because you can tip your hat to any of those sources you have within the industry that you've made through the Immersion Program. Mykenzie, as you make your way through the program, how valuable do you think it is to the pork industry, specifically the talent pipeline for pork producers?
Yeah, when I think of the Immersion Program and the way it's described to not only me, people around me, colleagues and peers, it is that pipeline of leadership for state associations as well as the producers. And when I think of value of the Immersion Program, I want to represent pork producers across the United States in a good way, that they know that their investment matters and that they know their investment in me is well worth it. And it's very important that we, as an ever-changing industry, are able to produce leaders for the states and at the national level. And I think with the Immersion Program, it's a great way to have that surface level understanding of how all three, meaning the national associations and then the state associations, work together and how you can collaborate. And having leaders and people in the industry that understand that makes it better to work together. And as we continue to work forward and for our producers and educating consumers, we can all do that together. And so it's a very valuable program, and it's still growing, and there's so many opportunities for candidates and for me, Seth, and Harrison that have gone through it, going through it, and future candidates.
Just producing a very strong workforce there for the industry. Seth, as a current executive director, what's been the Pork Association's role in supporting pig farmers at the local level, and how did you experience this during your time in the Immersion Program?
As a state pork association, I really view us as the trusted partner and advocate for producers across the state of Nebraska. We have the unique ability to be boots on the ground in close proximity to our producers. Our goal is to be, their first phone call whenever an issue arises that we can assist them with, whether that be related to policy and regulatory issues, swine health, sustainability. We serve as the conduit for our producers to resources at the state and national level. And so anytime that the National Pork Board or NPPC have resources that they need deployed to the producers, oftentimes those come through the mechanism of state pork associations. And as I reflect on my time in the Immersion Program, I was able to experience that firsthand during my time in North Carolina, working for the North Carolina and Virginia Pork Councils. There I had the unique opportunity to serve, by all definitions, really as interim executive director of the Virginia Pork Council. And so I give credit to my mentor out there, Roy Lee Lindsay, for entrusting me with that opportunity and seeing the potential in me to hand over the reins to Virginia and allow me to experience that and be able to work with those producers. So I gained a lot of skills there that I continue to use, such as working with the board of directors, putting a budget together, applying for grants, some of those more technical back of house pieces that are fundamental to what we do, that still continue to bring value to the producers across the state. And so, really, it's all about relationships, and that's the value that we have at the state level, is those direct partnerships and relationships with the producers that we represent.
Well, as we wrap up our discussion here today, I'd like to ask both of you any key takeaways, thoughts you'd like to leave our audience with today. Mykenzie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I just want to wrap with saying that the Immersion Program is an opportunity that is not like any other opportunities you can find in other places. It's an opportunity that you can truly tailor your job to your interests and the things that you want to learn. And the next person that comes into the program, their path doesn't have to look like mine. It doesn't have to look like Seth or Harrison's. And that's the super cool part. And we're all walking in a different direction, but we're all here for the same reason, and that's serving our producers. And so that's really the attractiveness of this. And as we look into our next candidate, the applications for the next Immersion Program candidate are due in the middle of March. So as we continue into the next steps and continue to build the program, those are just some things that we can try and continue to sell this program.
Very good. Seth?
If you have an interest in a long-term career in the pork industry as a current college student, I can think of no better opportunity for an early career professional to get their feet into the pork industry than this immersion program. And I say that because the expectation of this program obviously is that we want to develop pork industry leaders, but as Mykenzie said, it's not prescriptive. And so whatever your journey might look like, if you don't know what that is for certain, but you're confident that you want it to be in the pork industry, this is the perfect starting point. Obviously, we would love for folks to come back and work in association capacities, but at the end of the day, this is about developing assets for the pork industry wherever you land after completion of the 2-year rotational program. So, Mykenzie already said where you can go to apply. I can't encourage it enough. And so if you have any interest at all, feel free to reach out to me directly as well. I'm happy to have a conversation about what your future opportunity might look like in this role.
Very good. Seth Mitchell and Mykenzie Darg, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insight.
Thanks for having us.
For you and our audience, we thank you for tuning in today. For more coverage and conversations on pork industry related topics, be sure to check out the Feedstuffs and National Hog Farmer websites, as well as our social media channels. For Feedstuffs and National Hog Farmer, I'm Ann Hess.